Hi everyone and welcome back to Newegg TV. My name is Paul and today we have a special guest in the Newegg TV studios. This is JJ from ASUS. JJ, thanks for stopping by today.
Thanks for having me.
And he is here to talk about the Xonar Phoebus, which is a new sound card from ASUS. It's in part of the ROG, Republic of Gamers series, so it's designed specifically for folks who have high-end gaming computers and want to have also a high-end gaming audio experience.
Yeah, it's actually very special because it's the first ROG sound card that we've ever released. Previously, we've had cards like the Xonar DG, the DSX, the D1, outstanding cards that have also been utilized by gamers and hardcore gamers alike, but that wasn't necessarily specifically under the branding of ROG. So this card has been in development for some time, where we took a lot of time to really collect feedback from the enthusiasts in the gaming community, because there's a little bit of kind of a cross-cut in terms of the usage model. We get guys that are just passionate about having really great quality sound on their systems, regardless of whether it's for gaming, for movies, for music playback, but then also a hardcore demographic of guys that are really serious about having great quality audio on their systems because of how they play games. They want superior positioning, accuracy, and clarity because they actually gives them a better edge in gameplay. They're able to hear more clearly footsteps. They're able to hear dialogue more clearly. So you get kind of two different segments. And with this card, we were really looking to home on both those levels. We wanted to be able to put out a card that meets a usage model of just being outright an awesome sound card in terms of the clarity, the performance, and the flexibility you have in terms of the card, but also with some key technologies in it being an ROG card that are centered really towards the enthusiast and the hardcore gamer. So
you get sort of that extra edge in gaming, as you mentioned, being able to actually hear where sounds are coming from, particularly in a PvP type of environment, or if you're into FPS gaming, but also you get that more immersive experience just from having that greater clarity of sound.
Yeah, even in RTS too. Actually, I find I'm a big RTS buff, so I love stuff like StarCraft or Age of Empires, different games like that, Dawn of War, Company of Heroes, and actually with so many units on field, it's always nice to be able to have actually a little bit clearer tone in terms of the dialogue of knowing where the positions and units are coming from actually on the field. But let's get into some of the unique characteristics on this card.
All right, so if you don't mind, let's quickly run down everything that comes in the box. So starting over here on the right side, we of course have a quick start guide to set you up with installing the card if you're not familiar with that. Also get a disc with drivers and everything on it. I'm guessing you would also recommend to head over to the ASUS website. You can download updated versions of the software if it's available.
Yeah. In most situations with our Soundcard drivers, we do a lot of validation and work, so it's not going to be something that you're going to consistently see a lot of driver updating for. Maybe within a normal year cycle, there might be maybe one, maybe two driver updates. So usually what comes on the disc is probably going to be there for a pretty consistent period of time. The only time that sometimes something might change is maybe if we're working with like a game developer and we notice that maybe we need to update the sound profile system to work a little bit more optimally in terms of like positional audio or things like that. But like you were saying, definitely always feel free to check support.asus.com for the latest version of the driver and the software.
Okay. We also have a power adapter right here, and this sound card actually has a 6-pin PCI Express power connector, so if you don't have that natively from your power supply, you can use that as an adapter with a couple Molex plugs. You also have this little guy, which I had never seen one of before, but this is actually a 1/8 inch audio jack to an optical Toslink plug, so that will let you convert the port on the back of the card if you want to go with an optical Toslink connection.
Yeah, there is a multi-purpose port there in terms of one of the rear multi-channel sound ports that also serves as the optical that you can go ahead and utilize that adapter. One note that I do want to make on the accessory of the power adapter is that the PCI Express power is required to actually power the card correctly. That's because there are two actually power supplies implemented on the card, one in terms of amplification for the headphone, another one for the overall power delivery of the card itself. But you do need to make sure to have that connected to actually have it work.
So not an optional power connector. Make sure you get that plugged in. And then let's talk about some of the hardware. Let's start off with the breakout box that you have here. You mentioned this has some pretty cool features.
Yeah, well, I think dive a little bit more into that, but this is definitely one of the accessories that comes included with the unit. It's essentially a breakout box that does have an actual ambient microphone built into it to allow us to go ahead and pick up some ambient recording data, and then of course has front microphone and front headphone connections, as well as actually a knob here that allows you to make adjustment to the volume.
And you mentioned that you actually get some benefit by going with this breakout mic and headphone plugs as compared to using, for example, front panel audio?
That's correct. In a lot of chassis, with a lot of discussion in gamers, we've found that there's kind of varying quality levels in terms of the chassis that are out there on the market and the quality of the actual front audio connection header itself. Sometimes it can be clean and clear, and other times it can actually have a little bit of noise, a little bit of feedback, different variables in terms of the overall experience. So this being such a high-end card and really focused to this gamer, we wanted to make sure that we gave them the best overall experience. So we included this Breakout Box Module where they can go ahead and essentially make these connections here to the actual back of the card itself, and then from there they can go ahead and connect their microphone and their headphones directly to the front of the Breakout Box.
I notice you have 3 plugs here. Is one of these actually for that ambient mic?
That's correct.
Okay, so if you, for example, wanted to use this for ambient but wanted to plug in directly, I don't know why you'd do that, but you could still make use of that ambient mic?
Though the ambient mic is specifically designed for purposes of the what's called environmental noise canceling processing. Okay. So in terms of using it like a secondary microphone, it wouldn't function in that regard.
But could you still get that noise canceling function just by plugging in that mic?
Yes, yes. This will actually work with whatever mic you decide to utilize.
Okay.
So if you just have your own freestanding microphone or a headset, like let's say actually our Vulcan headset, and you were to plug it into this, then you will still receive that benefit because the processing is occurring in terms of the ambient noise. It has nothing to do with actually what's occurring in terms of your voice.
Okay.
Yep.
And that leads us on to the Xonar Phoebus sound card itself, which is right here. And what are some of the highlights of this card?
Well, in terms of the highlights, there's quite a lot actually going along with the cards. I think in terms of just covering some of the external points here before we get into some of the technology aspects is going to be the connectivity that you actually have here. So it's fully focused at, of course, multi-channel support, but it's really focused at guys that are interested in 2-channel and headphone performance. We have actually discrete, dedicated portions of the card that are designed for stereo and then also for multi-channel support. So you kind of get the best of both worlds in having a high-end card that's designed for both. There is a dedicated actual amplifier on there for people that are utilizing higher quality headphones and need actually higher driving ohm support, up to 600 ohms. So that's a really plus point in terms, especially if you're taking advantage of higher quality headsets. But if you're connecting, passive monitors that have their own amplifier built into them, also going to get great playback performance. Now, one note that I showed you is that if you do connect this with power, that the actual headphone port and the microphone port do illuminate. So you'll actually have the headphone port and the microphone port. One will be lit green and the other one would be lit red.
Yeah, we plugged this in just a few moments ago, and if you guys have ever, especially if it's dark and you're trying to plug in ports in the back of your computer and it's hard to get to, finding which of all these ports is the actual line out for your audio can be a little bit difficult. So ASUS went and had a brilliant idea, and actually for the mic in and wait, is it the mic in? Which 2 is it?
So mic in's all the way to the left, and then headphone out is the next one to the right.
Headphone out.
And then the black one is going to be the actual box link connection, so the breakout box.
Okay, and that's for the breakout
so
box.
The mic in and the headphone out would be the one. Mic in would light red, and then the headphone out would light green.
Yeah, so you can see that in the dark, or you can actually just hold your hand right in front of that, and the light kind of shoots out there, and you can determine very easily which of those to plug into. So a nice little feature right there. That's not the only thing that lights up on the card. We also have the Xonar Phoebus logo here on the side, which also lights up.
Yes, and that will change color actually depending on the ohm setting that you set the headphone control panel to. So if you have 32 ohm versus, let's say, 150 or 600 ohm, it will actually change color. Default color would be blue, and then the higher end operating mode would be in red.
Very nice, and as that is facing out in most computer cases when you have it plugged in like this.
Correct.
Particularly if you have, say, a side window on your case, you can look right in there and easily make sure that you are using the right setting. Mm-hmm. A couple more connectors just to point out here. You also have this one here, which is this is to connect an optical drive?
That's correct. That's a pass-through for optical. For analog, that's generally only going to be required in much older operating systems. So like Windows XP would still require that, but all modern generation operating systems all pass that information directly through the PCI Express bus.
Yeah, I stumbled there for a while because I haven't had to use that plug for quite some time, actually. And then, of course, you have your 6-pin power connector here,
correct,
as previously mentioned. Now, you guys might have noticed that the lid, the cover here, is a little loose, and that's because we loosened it, because we wanted to show some of the cool features of the actual design work that has gone in here. JJ was mentioning that ASUS has spent some extra time to make sure that certain components on the board are actually separated from each other.
Yes.
So for instance, you'll notice this ridge right here, that's separating the mic and headphone hardware over on this side.
From the multi-channel side on this side, yeah. The actual cover you saw serves both an aesthetic function in terms of actually just looking cool, but also it helps to block interference from the rest of the board. And that's important in terms of helping to provide the overall best quality experience in terms of minimizing any type of interference from affecting the PCB and the outboard componentry. So independent of that, you can see, as you noted here, that we have an isolated section design where we have the dedicated portion for the 2-channel or headphone experience and then the multi-channel on the other side. Now, all the capacitors that we have here are, of course, really high grade. These are all of the Nichicon capacitors that are specifically focused at audio, so they have a great tone, clarity to them, and that really aligns with the rest of the card specifications like the 118 dB signal-noise ratio. There's also a lesser known spec that comes in terms of audio that's called THD. It's called Total Harmonic Distortion, which is very important in terms of overall the accuracy at the way that sound is transmitted. This is different just than the peak measurement levels of what sometimes is done with SNR. And you want to optimally have a low THD in conjunction with a high actually SNR. And here we have a really great THD marker as well on the card, so really giving you an optimized level of clarity, low noise floor, pretty much actually almost gone, great peak ranges, and really strong dynamic range performance. Now in terms of some of the other componentry, we've got some really specialized items on the board like a Burr Brown DAC and a high grade operational amplifier. So here we have, like, let's say, our amplifier on the card, as well as some of the other components that we have on here. Now, with touching on that, there are some other items that I think I kind of wanted to talk about in terms of the card in itself, like some of the more specialized technologies on the breakout box.
Okay.
So let's talk a little bit about that there. So one of the key things that we wanted to do when talking to gamers was to help to improve the overall kind of experience that they had when utilizing different types of voice clients. So this would be stuff like TeamSpeak, Xfire, Ventrilo, or even integrated voice chat like in Steam. And part of the feedback that we have is that a lot of time when you're gaming, you have other things that are going on around you, right? And when those other things are going around you, there's other ambient sounds that are in play. And essentially those things will travel through, be picked up on your mic, and then processed through. So actually on this breakout box, as you can see illustrated, there's actually a microphone, an ambient microphone built onto the breakout box. And what it will do is it will actually process in the ambient noise, and when you turn the function of the ENC, the environmental noise canceling, on, it will process out the environmental noise. That way helping to make sure that the only thing that's really being effectively communicated through when you're voice chatting is your voice. So you help to maintain overall better clarity and better fidelity so that people can hear what you're saying more clearly and more accurately.
So more so than, say, noise cancellation that you might have on headphones, this is actually picking up the live audio that's going on ambiently and using that information to filter that out.
And it's important to note that even if your headphones, quote unquote, have noise cancelling, right, that's only in reference to what you're hearing, right? So you're minimizing picking up other sounds, but that does nothing in terms of if you're talking to somebody, or like here in my apartment, it's not that great. I actually have my computer desk right next to my kitchen. So when my girlfriend's actually like cooking dinner sometimes, right, actually some of those things can be heard if I'm talking on or in an actual in-gameplay. So that could essentially be effectively filtered out, and what you're generally going to be hearing is actually the gameplay in terms of me talking. So it's a nice improvement to be able to make, and like I said, it's ultimately up to you in terms of how you want to configure that. You can go in and either turn that on or turn that off. We always want to give the flexibility with technologies like that to make sure that the gamer has that accessible to them, that hey, if for whatever reason I feel that it's impacting my gameplay experience, or I like it disabled, or I like enabling, it's up to you. So it's not something that's inherently always going to be on. So we've done a lot of work to be able to tune that to make sure that it's as flexible as possible.
Okay.
Moving past from that, we've got a couple of other items that we've incorporated in here, and this is going to touch a little bit more in terms of the actual board level design. Now we went and said, like you said, took apart the card to show you some of the cool elements, and one of them that we're really proud of is the separation of what's called our hyper grounding design. With the hyper grounding design, essentially what we've tried to do is to separate digital portions and analog portions from the card. And if we take a look here, you can see here that there's an audio signal path, and then there's a grounding layer. and then we have a digital signal and power path. And we want to try to minimize those paths coming in relation to each other, because if they start to come in relation to too much each other, they can affect the sound performance. And these are the type of details that definitely on an integrated soundboard, you just don't have the flexibility. Us as a board vendor, we really understand you know, the kind of limitations that we have to deal with when we're doing onboard audio. We try to make it as good as we can, but the reality is that the cost points, it's not possible to implement a lot of these higher end things. On some of our ROG boards, like we've talked about, like on the Supreme FX 3 designs, we've done some really cool stuff to isolate parts of the board to help improve the overall signal clarity, but this is kind of taking it even further, truly making sure that we're isolating it from the rest of the other active sources that could provide interference or overall impact our sound quality.
Okay.
So lastly from there, here we're just kind of touching on some of the key componentry that we have, and you can also see in the next slide we'll show the actual ohm ratings here, but you can see that we're using this really high performance Burr Brown DAC. Burr Brown is kind of really an industry standard in terms of kind of being considered the best DACs that you can get on the market for processing your sound. So these are the same things you would see in high-end receivers from companies like Denon, Mark Levinson, Onkyo, and different vendors like that. So we really prided ourselves that we took kind of to the next level, making sure that the processing chips that we're putting on here are really kind of cut above the rest in terms of what you would put on there.
And that handles the work of transferring, say, a digital audio signal to analog and vice versa?
Correct, yeah. So those are the processing chips that we have incorporated on there. And as we also noted, we have that amplifier in terms of the headphone, and then of course the Nichicon professional audio capacitors, along with some of those other design choices that we've made. So rounding it up here, as you can see, this is where we were talking about where you have the two different light sequences for the card. So when you're operating there in the red mode or we're operating in the blue mode, you can see essentially at which operating marker you're at in terms of your headphones. Now, the majority of headphones you have on the market are only going to be rated at 32 ohms. So that's going to be basic headphones, and you're going to have a great experience there. But if you do make an investment in a much higher quality set of headphones that might require sometimes higher ohm ratings, like 150 ohm or 600 ohm, all you need to do is just go into the control panel, set that, and you're going to be good to go.
So especially as you're mentioning, for folks who might be getting really high-end headphones out there, if you don't have a sound source that can supply that ohm rating, then you're actually not going to get the ideal sound.
Yeah, correct. And that's where actually sometimes people make mistakes in terms of things that they purchase. There are some sound cards out there that it's like at 150 ohm. The user doesn't know it's 150 ohm. They connect it to the integrated audio, and they think, wow, this sounds really bad. And actually the sound experience can be quite poor because it's not able to be powered correctly, and therefore that the performance of the headset is quite subpar. So it's important that you make sure that you match accordingly. And in the same respect, if you've got a good set of headphones but maybe not a great set of headphones, it might not make sense to make an investment into such a high-end card like what we're offering here with the Phoebus. So you want to make sense of kind of the playback source, the playback medium that you have, whether it's a headphone or a set of speakers or monitors, that they kind of align with the card as well.
So high quality source audio, a high quality sound card, high quality headphones. If you don't have all three of those, well, you probably want all three of those to get that.
Yeah, to get the overall best experience, definitely. So overall, that gives us a little bit of the functionality here where we're just rounding out to note, as we noted, that here on the headphone out on the card itself, if we take a look at it, we've got the headphone and the microphone out, and those will also go ahead and illuminate. And as I noted, you've got the mute button functionality in terms of the actual toggle knob here, as well as to be able to go ahead and adjust the volume. So that gives a little bit overall kind of a perspective here on the Xonar Phoebus and some of the cool functions and features that it has. So definitely for guys that are interested in having overall kind of the best grade gaming audio sound card you can get on the market, this is definitely a cut above the rest. So
JJ, as this is an ROG card designed for gamers, what have you guys done to make sure that this has the best compatibility possible with different games that people might play?
That's a great question. That comes actually into the software stack and also as part of the testing. So as I noted earlier, we do spend a lot of time actually doing a lot of game tests on general game engines that are out there. So whether it's going to be stuff like Call of Duty, Medal of Honor, Dawn of War, Counter-Strike, doesn't really matter. We do actually a lot of games. I think that internally we've done over about 150 game engines to try to check and make sure that interoperability meets its level of functionality. In addition to that, we actually have special profile systems. So if we take a look at actually our control center environment here, we have a brand new control center that replaces our previous existing Xonar control interface. And this is kind of more centric towards gamers. It's very clean, it's very light. It's just designed to allow you to kind of see the functions that you're looking for, make those modifications, but you can also assign different modes for different types of genres. So FPS or racing or RTS, you can go in there and essentially assign that mode, and you can essentially have a profile that's kind of tweaked to the kind of environmental positioning characteristics that are made available. Now, there is also the question that we have other advanced sound technologies that we've built in. So that's going to be Dolby Home Theater version 4.0 in conjunction with our GX game audio engine. Now, GX works in conjunction with any game engine that's EAX based. But as you might know, EAX hasn't actively been utilized in actually really any current games. So like Battlefield 3 that just might have came out, right? Or Skyrim that's come out. None of those games actually have EAX support. They're no longer supported actively by the operating system. But in some cases, gamers still might want to be able to tweak and tune their sound or add positional or virtualized multi-channel audio support. And so that's where Dolby Home Theater comes into play, is that we can go ahead and offer that flexibility with a much newer processing algorithm than what actually EAX was utilizing, which was developed quite some time ago. And Dolby has consistently been actually updating, going into their labs, tweaking and tuning to give you some really advanced algorithmic parameters to give you some really nice, actually robust virtualization in terms of the sound.
So you've gone with the newer standard with Dolby Home Theater 4.0, but still have that backwards compatibility if you are running, say, an older game that uses EAX.
Yeah, so you can kind of get the best of both worlds. You can support the old, but as well as you can benefit in new game titles by going into that. And that's all accessible via our new ROG Xonar interface. Right. So that covers definitely the software that we're doing on the ROG front.
All right, and that's going to wrap it up for this video. Once again, this has been JJ from ASUS. I'm Paul with Newegg TV. If you guys would like to see more videos, you can check out our Newegg YouTube channel. Also, if you want to see more of JJ and his videos, you can check out the ASUS ROG channel. This has been the Xonar Phoebus gaming sound card, as well as the set of accessories that comes with it. We'll see you all next time on Newegg TV.